Hello and welcome to the Third Option International live Facebook chat series. Sue and Randy Pinto here, along with Mike and Andrea Buckley. And as it's Memorial Weekend, we wanted to just honor the spirit and purpose of the Memorial Day. So we are recording this and we will post it live on Sunday evening. And then of course it will be posted and available for the rest of the week. So Mike and Andrea, can you just do a brief recap of last week's topic, which was appreciating personality differences, before we get into this week, which is a hard one: childhood issues and emotional baggage.
Great to be with you guys again this week. Hello, everyone. We've all seen the adage, opposites attract. And we tend to fall in love with someone that is the opposite of us, someone who complements us. And we know that we have different personality traits like neat, messy, passive-aggressive, introvert, extrovert, humorist, serious, flexible, inflexible, or stubborn. That pessimist, optimist thing that people have. And when we are dating, we tend to see someone different from us as, that's attractive in them. I don't have that. I need some of that. But we find afterwards, once we're married for a while, I don't like that anymore. You're too much that way. You're not like me. So I got to change you to make you more like me so that things can go on in a better light. And that's a problem when we do that. Every personality trait can be overbearing if we take it to the extreme. And we want to make sure that we make it work for us. So the one thing that this lesson teaches is that we have to appreciate that. I have to appreciate that Andrea is different than I am. And that because she's different, I have to accept that fact. And the third option is bridge and grow. If we can study that other spouse where I become a student of her and she becomes a student of me, then we can know that we can work on those different areas that we have. So appreciate, meet in the middle, and become that student. That's about all I can say now before we get into the childhood emotional baggage issue. So as we begin childhood emotional baggage, I asked the question, have you ever walked into a movie halfway, it's still going on, and wondered, why are those people acting that way? What happened? And the simple answer is to this whole session is because we didn't understand the history that took place before that. So Andrea's going to go over a little bit of that as we go into this topic.
I like the way you said that, Mike. I hadn't heard it put that way. It's like walking in the middle of a movie. There's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it, isn't it? We can learn a lot from our pasts. We all come from different places, different backgrounds, and we all have these messages in our head. What were the messages that keep repeating over and over? So this lesson is one of reflection. We're hoping that we can all today, the four of us, think about it in that perspective. We're reflecting, and be helpful to ask questions of ourselves, such as, what were those messages that we hear over and over? Were they positive messages that made us feel good? Were they negative messages that didn't? Who were our role models? Did we have any, or didn't we have any? And did we have a place in our family or a role in our family based on our birth order or gender? And another question, was there anyone missing in our family? Was there death in the family or divorce in the family? So we begin this session, and it is a very reflective topic and very deep topic. So we'll try to do our best to move along. But a lot of it's hopefully to get people to be introspective. What can we learn after we've asked ourselves these questions now that we're adults?
One thing about Andrea and our relationship when we first met, she was an only child. So I came from a family of 8, and it was something that she had to get used to once we got married. I would come in, be with my brothers, tease. There was a lot of noise in the house, a lot of different things going on. And in her family, it was her parents. Her grandparents were close by, but there were her parents and Andrea. And, you know, she couldn't make a move. If she started going down the wrong path, they were right on her in a second. Well, in our family, it was a little bit different than that. So that's something that we had to adjust to when we began even just discussing how we live our lives, and also how we began to parent our kids. And she says that, you know, when my boys would do something, I don't know if the word is wrong, but different, she'd say, "Did you do that as a kid?" And I says, "I did worse." So those are the things that we're talking about looking at our past and how we relate now to what we came from.
And every week we put up the timeline. You don't have to do it now. You're probably going to do it more towards the end. But if we begin to with that in our mind regarding these messages and regarding this topic of childhood baggage, on one end of the timeline, there's denial. And I think most of us understand the meaning of the word denial. But in reference to this, my past didn't have any effect on me. You know, childhood, growing up, yeah, it was great. Good things, bad things, no, great. The other side of the timeline is fatalism. And that's when we adopt this mentality that this is the way I am, that's the way it is, I am who I am, and I cannot change. So, excuse me. So to be balanced in the center, we're looking for this lesson to sort the items, to sort the feelings out. Be aware of the past influence that our childhood had on us. And we need to do the work of separating them and saying, this was beneficial, I liked this. And so we're going to keep that. This didn't serve any purpose. This isn't good in my relationship. It's toxic in with relationship with others. If I'm insecure, if I'm angry, if I don't have confidence, if I feel shameful and guilty, those types of things. So the balance line is this process of sorting it out. And we call it have a garage sale. We can all relate. Have a garage sale, you keep some stuff, you throw the rest out and move forward. Yeah. Another thing to remember, oh, go ahead, Sue.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this balance line up, is that fatalistic, and I think we alluded to that last week a little bit, is, you know, sometimes people use that as their excuse. Well, that's just how I am. And then, well, that's not going to work because, you know, you can't every time there's well, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. That's just who I am. You know, and I there's this one saying that has come up a lot, I think, over the last few years of you just be you. And I really understand the meaning behind it. I understand the whole thing. We want to be able to be who we are without being judged, without being persecuted or whatever. So I get that. Just be you. But I always think in my head, and I think, well, unless you're a turd, don't be you if you're a turd. You know what I mean? So, which I think, you know, personality from last week, you know, a lot of our personality is probably based on how we were raised. And, you know, there's that nature nurture thing. So, you know, a lot of it comes from how we were raised, and that comes into this as well, our emotional and childhood issues of, you know, what did we see? Who was in our proximity, living in our lives, whether it was in our house or within our little world, and how did that affect us? So, you know, I can think obviously in my situation of various things through growing up that affected how I perceive things now. And, you know, there were times, you know, alcohol was a thing that I grew up with within my family. And, you know, that affected me for years and years and years, and my perception of it. And it still does. However, there was a time where I was much more extreme on one end of it and my thoughts about it. And over the course of time, you know, because I've gotten older and we now have 5 kids and things have, I still have a certain perspective that I want to make sure that my kids recognize and that I value. So I'm not as extreme on it, but that was something that over the course of years, many years through high school and through college, and that was something that always affected my thought process. And it's hard. It's really a matter of really looking within your family. And we can't just say, well, that's who I am. We have to think, well, why do I think this way? And that's hard to look in that mirror and say, well, why do I think this way? But we have to come to realize that that's okay. It's good to self-reflect. It's good to find, what makes us tick and how that might not actually be the best way to proceed. We may have to really look at it and say, well, how can I change that? How can I make it better? And so this is it's a tough topic, and it could be a long topic, a lot to talk about, but it's valuable. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that for my own personal.
It's interesting, the words that you said. I think it brings to mind that people are being taught to not compromise with what you just said. Well, I've got to be me. You just be you. You just do you, and it's okay. Well,
as long as you're not a turd.
Maybe it's okay, but sometimes it's not okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we look at this. I don't know if that's denial or fatalistic. Quite frankly, that one, I'm not sure what end of the balance beam that one sits on. But what strikes me is, in a sense, people for some time now have been taught not to compromise, right? And that there's not another way, and they don't have to do another way. And really, what we're about is having relationships that are healthy, and it really takes. You must consider all these things, take in perspective, and communicate about it, which is what that's a whole goal of this program. That's how all these topics feed into one another, right? They all connect. And whenever we're talking about one, a couple other topics are coming to mind, what we just did. So yeah, that's interesting. So we got to remember what we're taught. It's either baggage, or sometimes we were taught that we're trying to discard or use differently, right? Or at least use it for good, not evil. Use it to be productive, right?
Yes, and I think this is the first step, the awareness that you're willing to go in. It's getting off the denial end of that, and saying, okay, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there, because the real problem becomes when we're gridlocked with each other, and now we need to understand, why is this person behaving that way? If they can't tell us why, if we can't look underneath their reaction and the behavior, whether it's some type of addiction or abuse or something going on, and we don't know where that's coming from, they have to be willing to go into it, take a good look, and help share that. And then we have to work with it. We have to be able to, each of us have to be able to do that. So it's very important, what you're saying. Now we have to go to the next step and learn, how is that affecting our relationships?
Well, and I think, yes, being aware, and what you said was so important, that we have to be willing, because it made me think back to that time when you said, and I just forgot it. I know. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be in a relationship and within my family? And I think this is a great time to really look at this and say, well, I am who I am. Okay, so you just want to be right. You just want to be you. Then guess what? Then I guess that's it. But if you have to be willing, you have to be aware, and then we also have to be willing to say, you know what? No, I respect this relationship and this family that we've started and have grown, and I'm willing to go beyond just myself and recognize and become self-aware of where I need to work and how we can make this work within our relationship. So I think not only being aware, but being willing then to do it.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
It's about time.
So can we try to understand then what the other spouse is trying to say to us? And that might be the reason why they're behaving differently from us. And it could be from anger or rage that they had in their household when they grew up. Boy, that's going to carry over to the next relationship, because it's hard to get rid of that. And if we were fearful, panicky, anxious, maybe our parents were overprotective and they were over controlling and perfectionistic, and we couldn't measure up to them. Maybe they were neglected in their lives when they were growing up. Again, all this pattern is generational at times. Perhaps our parents were distant, rejecting and showing little affection. Maybe there was favoritism towards another sibling. It could have been unfair. We have resentment over that. Guilt and shame and being inferior. If we had strict, manipulative, judgmental parents who were constantly bickering, we might have been overly concerned to try to balance it on the other end of being nice and trying to please other people. And alcoholism or drugs, that could have an impact, certainly. And if we grew up with severe trauma, such as death or abandonment of a loved one or ridicule over a handicap or a physical characteristic, we probably have a lot of pain that we're bringing into this marriage. And of course, we can be depressed. And if we're depressed over the way life has treated us, we can then feel that pain, and it brings out negative emotions. And that's depression when that happens.
But sorry, Mike, it's
Yeah, go
interesting
ahead.
too. You're talking about some like really major heavy issues, right? And there's programs out there, so different sorts of abuse and substance abuse and physical abuse and mental abuse, right? So those are really big things. And we hear a lot of, we want to be the ones to break the cycle, right? But there's
Yes.
many small issues and emotional baggage, a lot of small things that chip away. So it's many small things. So these big things are out there, many of these small things. And as Andrea, you said, to be self-aware and make a decision, but then, break the cycle. So we think break the cycle for the large issues. We really want to break the cycle out of these small issues, or understand, or at least be flexible with them, right? So yes, it's a lot. There's big things, but we forget about all those little things that might even actually have a bigger impact sometimes.
Yes. And I can remember somebody coming up to me. We all meet somebody when you're out in the street one day that's rude to you, like for no reason. Maybe a service representative or somebody driving a car that swears at you out the window, or something, and you look at them so baffled, like, what did he do that for? What did she do that for? Like, where's that coming from? And I remember a wise person told me one time, if you try thinking, maybe that person had a really bad day, or maybe something triggered an emotional response in them to childhood baggage that they're not even aware of. So that's one kind of small example. Like you're saying, Randy, it's a lot of little things. It's not always a big problem, a big problem, but it's all these little responses that we have every day in our own relationships, in our families and in the workplace, where sometimes it'll come out of ourselves and say, I don't know why I did that. And it's only because we've taken these programs and for so long that we now stop and we can ask ourselves the question, well, now why did I say that? I'm sorry, I got angry at you because, and I start to go deeper. I was upset about this, or, reminded me of something that happened with another friend of mine that I was really hurt by that. And so now when you did that, it just triggered it into me, and wasn't right that I had that response, or it's an explanation. So, I think that's what we're getting at here, the awareness, and then the patience and the desire to try to understand is really going to bring us closer to the real truth about knowing that other person and having compassion for that other person, so you can bridge that gap.
True. And we got to get to the solutions. What do we do about that? Well, we have to know what our triggers are. We need to know what our past emotional baggage is. And I need to know what Andrea's are, so that when they do come out, sometimes they don't come out too nicely. And if that's the case, if we triggered that emotional baggage, we need to talk about it with compassion. And this way, our past won't poison our current marriage relationship. Those are difficult things sometimes to do.
Yes, and I know it may seem like we've mentioned, when you think of the past, you think of parenting, you think of family. And it's important that we're not misunderstood today in this session as blaming our parents, like it was their fault, because that's totally not where we're wanting to go. Nobody had perfect parents. They don't exist. But we need to really strongly remember that our parents did the best that they could do, but they didn't have perfect parents. So this is where we're going, and certainly not blaming. And another important point is, as Randy said too, we're thinking about day-to-day little things. But if in talking about this today, it triggers very strong emotional baggage in your past. Some people, they have a few incidences they can remember, but other people have a lifetime of it, and it can get extremely heavy. So it's important to appreciate that there's counseling. It's important to appreciate that you can talk to a trusted friend, a clergy, or contact somewhere that you can get help, because sometimes when we're asking people to do the work of self-examination, you can uncover some really serious things about yourself that you may require the need to talk to a professional person about. And that, as we've said before, is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of judgment or weakness. So we want to just make sure we say that again to everyone.
So it's interesting, and the title of this is Childhood Issues and Emotional Baggage. And as you say, it's easy to blame parents and whatnot, but it's not really about that. And what strikes, because sometimes it's just how you were brought up. It's a situation, like you say, Mike, you came from a large family, she came from a single family. They both worked, they weren't problems, but it's not going to work for the new life and the new relationship, right? So sometimes these can be, it could be religion, and it can be cultural and all those things. So it's not a negative connotation that it's baggage, but it's the way you were brought up and what you bring with you. So when we say baggage, it's not a bad thing, but this is what's called a record collection. It's in your head, what you bring with you from your life, and it may have worked there. So it's not, as you say, Andrea, blaming parents or necessarily that there were bad situations or all this really startlingly abusive things that can have happened to people. But the normal stuff that's in your head that worked for you, you bring in a new situation and you just expect, as you pointed out in several lessons, Mike, you expect, well, this is the way it is. Well, it's not the way it is. So these are the things, that's the baggage in our head we're bringing along sometimes, and we don't realize it's there. So there's not really a blame for it, but we're thinking that's normal and this will work, and well, what do you mean you don't do it that way? Well, that's the way, right? So it's getting to some of that and understanding. Let's stop and think about the why and the how and what will work. And that's that whole balance line, right? What will work, and getting to that point. And again, sometimes it's the old good to great. The smallest things are the hardest things to recognize and fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I keep thinking about all the little stuff, and those are the gnats, the mosquitoes that are biting you all the time and causing a big aggravation. You don't even realize that you're swatting at them, and they can really be undermining things. You don't know it. And those cause the triggers for the big issues, right? The big
Right,
problems,
exactly.
big
And it's a big thing, Randy, to change just thinking from right and wrong, win and lose, to what you just said.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Yep.
We're different. We talked about personality differences. We're talking about appreciating those things. So this is just an extension, one more layer.
And cultures and religions can be a big part of that. I think growing up, my grandmother, and there are these big, gigantic family meals, and the women did all the work. I look at it back now, I'm like, boy, those guys, they did something right. But the work the women did, and the amount of cooking, and they did all the cooking and all the prep and all the cleaning, and the men would eat. Then they'd go sit and relax. Then they'd come and eat, and they'd sit and relax. And I looked at that. So I don't know how the women did it, but if you're bringing that record collection into a situation,
Yeah,
I'm not doing anything wrong, right?
Mhm.
But right, I'm not doing anything wrong, right? That's the way it is, right? It worked great. They were wonderful. Well, why wouldn't that continue, right? That looks like a great idea, actually.
Guess what? Now we have our kids do the dishes, so that's how that works.
But I think about all
Great.
those small things, those small examples, and that's a little more just cultural in a sense, and they're not again, they're not bad things. It's just what it was. And I saw those things, and why would that be wrong?
Yeah.
Yes, I know why that'd be wrong. It's a rhetorical question.
Well, another issue that comes up that's kind of common in people's marriages is what we call the pursuer-distancer cycle. And suppose our unfinished business is to connect with one another, and it's very uncomfortable emotionally to have to deal with it. Well, one of the spouses really wants to get to the bottom of it. The other one says, I don't want any part of it. I can't handle it right now. So the pursuer goes after the person that's kind of running away, distancing, and you don't get anywhere with that. The pursuer gets the more smothered. The distancer will feel, very smothered, and they don't want to be in that kind of an adverse relationship. So there's pulling away, and I think what we're trying to do in this situation is learn to stand still and work together. And it takes practice to do that. So when we do that, we're able to at least ease the tension, and there won't be a panic, perhaps, if the pursuer recognizes they got to back off a little bit and the distancer can't be running away. And that's very important to ease that tension that's there. We all have those tendencies in our marriages, and we just have to know who we are, and we know that it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's yeah, I keep forgetting my train of thought. I don't know what my problem is, but
That's right, I've got one.
I was going to say patience. Patience is with any of the topics is important. And this one, like you're saying with that pursuer and distancer, is, if the pursuer really wants to address something and get to the bottom of something or hash something out, is that they have to have patience. And I think it's going to be that communication. The distancer can say, okay, I recognize that this is important to you. I recognize that we do need to discuss this. Let's give me a little more time so that I can meet you a little bit closer and slowly. So patience on both parts, where the pursuer says, okay, I see they want to try. Let me back off. I'm going to give you a little more time, come to me. And the distancer is like, okay, thank you for giving me a little more space. And then they both have to follow through. And the distancer has to say, okay, I am going to come to you, and they have to follow through and come back. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Randy.
Well, and they're all connected. That this is one topic out of 14, and as we're talking, other topics are coming up in my mind. But as you point out, Mike, that brings that self-awareness, as you said, Andrea, all right, and then a desire to positive change, that we can only change ourselves. And we don't all change at the same time. So just because I have an epiphany doesn't mean she has it on the same day, right? So that whole how we get through this journey and how we get through these topics. So the overarching concept of this program, again, is there are two positions here. There's my way and there's her way. And how do we, get and meet in the middle and stay on the same path in the same direction, and be happy and understanding, agreeable as we do it, right?
Getting to that,
Right.
work it out. I do want to, I know this is a long topic. There's a lot and it's a lot that people will have to kind of dive into their own life and experiences. And we can't dive into every experience in life, memory that we have. But I just want to get to a couple of the things, such as those summaries and takeaways, that we all have the emotional baggage and unfinished business. Can you just talk about that unfinished business briefly? I don't think we've chatted about that any.
Well, I think they're pretty much intertwined, aren't they? Emotional
Yes.
baggage and unfinished business. It's about putting closure. I think it's what we said, being willing to go back and evaluate those things and put closure to things. If you're angry about something that took place, you need to go back there and resolve why you were angry. And we're going to have topics coming up on conflict and anger and forgiveness and all that. So we're kind of going to lead into that. But you got to go back and have closure, so that when you're in the relationship, you can be in the present and you can move forward.
It's like Andrea mentioned earlier, let's sort the good things from the junk, the treasure from the junk, And if we can learn to let go of the things that no longer serve us or our spouse, we have to let them go and cherish the good. And let's do it with compassion for ourselves and our spouse. That's what this third option topic is trying to teach us, to go forward and use that positive that we had from our childhood and try to eliminate the difficult parts.
Right. And that, something to think about, which I found in our paperwork, is the only way to satisfy your childhood needs is to commit yourself wholeheartedly to the satisfaction of your partner's needs. I apologize. I think allergies are starting to get to me. So that's why I keep coughing.
Yeah, and there was a whole section in this, if anybody's going to take the third option video series, or if you belong to a community, this is covered. This needs part, we didn't have the time today to go into that, but that's a very important part, knowing and trying to understand and meet those needs.
Okay. And then suggested exercises were to perhaps read and follow some of those suggestions in that particular book that is entitled Getting the Love You Want. And questions for this week for people to consider in regards to themselves is, what emotion most often get triggered? Is it possible that they are part of my emotional baggage? And can I begin to look at my spouse and our issues separately from my childhood issues? And then in terms of our partner, am I aware that my spouse has unfinished business? Am I aware of that? Have they talked about it? Can we dive into that? What does he or she seem to need the most from me that I haven't given? And what would happen if I actually began to try to meet that need?
Good questions.
Yeah.
All good points. And it's very difficult in this chat to really cover everything completely. That's why having the live stream or the DVD of the third option program is something that can really help people, so you can work at it at your own pace. And that's available at thethirdoption.com. And we have a special going on right now where you can purchase the DVD or the live stream for $49. I mean, it's I know money's tight right now, but for the cost of a nice dinner out, $49, we think it's well worth, and it's helped us tremendously in our marriage.
Yes. And I think that, we always welcome comments. You can see the emails that are up there, and here is about the website and the series. And I just wanted to mention that, this isn't some money-making thing. We're not trying to make all kinds of money. This is just a series that is just really out there to try to help people. We just have all been through stuff, and we hope to be able to bring this information to others, whether it's through a DVD that you purchase or you stream it and you bring it into your home, and that helps you and your family, which then, you may mention it to somebody else and they begin to start the DVD or series, or they purchase it, or they decide, hey, I want to start this community. I want to start a third option series somewhere within our community, and it's reaching out and it's helping to improve your world within your family, which then can also spill into your community and into your other areas. This isn't about making money. This is a nonprofit organization. Any money that comes through is meant to put more of this information out there, to maybe help organizations to put this series on. And obviously organizations can do that. The manual is available. Again, you can go to your clergy, social service organization, ask if they would be willing to purchase the series to be able to put on in your area. And the value of that is that, people are come together in the same room right now, unfortunately, with the quarantines, and we're slowly opening up within the country, but so we can do this via Zoom and virtual chats. But at some point, hopefully, we'll all be able to get back into a room. And if you can find a organization or a church that will purchase the manual, and they can find some couples and a facilitator to put this on, and then couples can come. And the beauty of the program is that there's other couples there, just like you, just like Mike and Andrea, just like Randy and I, who we all have crap, and we all have been through stuff, and we're all hopefully trying to work and to make a better life for ourselves and for our families. And that's the really magic, I think, magic potion of it is being in a room with these people. Nobody's judging each other. We're all there. We all hear things that we're like, oh yeah, that's familiar. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Oh, and we can all share. And so we're not trying to become millionaires or anything. It's just a matter of really getting this message out, trying to help people. And Mike and Andrea have been spearheading this from the author who started it, Pat Ennis. And so they have been amazing support and advocates of this program. So we thank them for that. And thank you for bringing us into the fold with it. And, we're really pleased. So Mike and Andrea, it's been great to chat with you again. We appreciate it. We hope you have a nice Memorial weekend, and in the spirit of those who are watching, thank you for those who are serving, and obviously thank you for those who have served in the past and who have, as they say, paid the ultimate sacrifice to allow us to have our freedoms, and we appreciate and honor them. Thank you to all who join us each week, and feel free to send us comments. We'd love to hear it. Send us an email, post on our Facebook page. And thank you. Mike and Andrea, we'll see you next time.
Yes, next week we're going to be talking about a hot topic. We're going to deal with anger.
Oh, finally, finally.
And thank you too for all your hard work.
Yes, thank you for putting this together.
We love you guys.
All right. Thank you. Love you too. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Keep well.